All right, so this is Todd Sullivan with Samjoko magazine, and today I'm speaking with. You actually have two names here, but it's Grant Vera. How you pronounce your last name?
Oh, I love this. It's Grant Vecera.
Vecera. Okay, so
Yeah.
today I have Grant Vecera here, and three of his poems was published in Samjoko magazine, and so I'm going to ask him a few questions, very general questions about poetry and the poems themselves. Before I begin the questions, though, I asked Grant to have one of the poems ready to read. So, Grant, if you could just say your name, the title of the poem, and then go ahead and read the poem.
Okay, my name first.
Yes.
All right. Okay, here we go. Let's see how this works. I'm going to pull the poem up on the screen, so that could be a little weird for me. Oh, this works. Okay, so my name is Grant Vecera, and the poem I'm going to read, the title of it is "A Live Dog is Better Than a Dead Lion." And so it was inspired by a small quotation from the text known as Ecclesiastes or Kohelet from the Old Testament. And oh, hang on a second. Need to step out. Cat, cat problem. All right, we're good. We're good. Just had to let my cat out. Okay. So ironically, the poem is called A Live Dog is Better Than a Dead Lion. And the ecclesiastic quote goes like this. Even a live dog is better than a dead lion, since the living know they will die, but the dead know nothing. And I guess that's Ecclesiastes 9, 4, and 5. Okay, so here's the poem. Um, the dog's name is Monty. I'll just say that. So here's the poem. Monty looks dead, but he's really just stretched like a sidelong glance with his globe belly heaving as if to prove he is still in charge as he bakes upon my neighbor's back deck under today's laughing late October sun. When his humans go on their adventures, it becomes my privilege to feed him precisely 1/2 cup once per day, let him out to poop and pee, throw the tennis ball for 15 minutes, then wrap up with one whole chewy treat. Once, once he got through a gap in the fence and he tried to eat our cat. 11 stitches in my thigh and 7 in my neck. I had to stuff $4 in the bad word jar. Not really, but that's what I told Monty's humans because they witnessed the whole thing and they have Bibles all over in there. Monty, warm under the benevolent October sun, watches me watch him, watches me scrawl these words on a yellow legal pad between bites of a mustard slathered ham on rye, watches with his hungry marble doggy eyes, misting, I love ham. And I once loved to break the necks of slow squirrels before it all got so foggy, and it burns my hips now, even just to walk. There you go.
All right, and thank you so much. And so, I never know if this is a fair question or not, but I still suppose this either way. Why do you write poetry?
Well, the problem is I could talk about it for about 2 hours, but that's just me. It's a lovely question, and I guess probably early childhood imprinting, um, not with poetry, but with just playing with toys when I was a kid, pretty normal stuff. And I think that I agree with others who believe that creative self-expression is a basic human need. And for me, it became poetry as I got older. I don't really play any musical instruments very well. I never really thought I was very good with drawing or, the visual arts. But I guess I felt like I wanted to do something like that, and pencil and paper were always around, or pen and paper, so it was pretty easy for me to just scrawl things out and and it just kind of I just kind of do it, and now I'm this old guy, and It's like a hobby, man. It's therapy.
And all these years later, what is your process of writing poetry? So do you like when you do you walk around with a tablet or a pad and you scribble down notes, or do you put everything on pencil and paper first on a tablet on your phone? So what's your process of actually writing poetry?
Man, gosh. Thanks for doing this, by the way. I really like talking about this. I guess it varies widely. I've got like right here a drawer full of little scraps of paper. I guess I'll just, jot things down here and there, and they stack up, and then I go back to them and look at them, and I don't know, something happens when I go from the hand scrawled thing to starting to type it out onto, the screen here, the Microsoft Word document, and then, it's like I said, when I was a kid, I used to play with Legos and, build model airplanes and stuff like that. And so then I'll just start tinkering and kind of running with my imagination. It reminds me a lot of when I was a kid playing with like toy soldiers and stuff like that. I'll just kind of I'll just go into my own world and go. So I guess that's my answer. I hope it's good enough.
And then
It's a fun question.
and then these three poems, what are these poems about?
Oh, well, it's hard to let me think how to do this since there's three of them. So I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. I was with a group of people, artists, local artists and writers and so forth, and we all took on the project of um, studying Ecclesiastes, Kohelet from the Old Testament, and we all had to kind of come up with some sort of artistic thing, create something inspired by this, and we'd meet every week, once or twice a week, and talk about it, and it's like a class, and so I decided what I'd do was just for every like section of it, like chapter, I guess you'd call it, write a poem. And so I've got about a dozen or so Ecclesiastes poems. And so they were just all inspired by little pieces of it. Um, yeah, and I like ancient texts a lot, and so forth. I hope that answered the question. Yeah.
No, and then so when I first started this channel doing interviews, I was teaching high school, middle school, and elementary school. So this question is really geared for people who are 18 and younger, but it's really for anyone. It could be for anyone.
Cool.
What tip would you give on writing poetry?
Oh, wow, man. I mean, I hate to do it because, it's so I probably don't have anything to add to all the obvious stuff, but that there's that thing I don't know, Carl Jung had it, or somebody like that, follow your bliss. Like write about things. Just scrawl. As I said before, creative self-expression is a basic human need. Um, it's nice to get recognition, and so I appreciate things like this a lot. And but I think it's real important to just do it for its own sake. Do it because you enjoy it, and I think it's nowadays with the internet, it's pretty easy to find you know publications that you can send your stuff to, and and get rejected a lot, frankly, and just kind of enjoy that, and just keep going with it and do it. That's a terrible answer, but don't worry about it. Don't take it too seriously. Enjoy it. It's play. It's child's play, and it's okay. You have
And then
permission to do it. Well, no, I'll tell you. One more thing. It's don't you don't have to get anything back for it. Just do it for its own sake. You have permission to do it. You're not wasting your time. Thanks.
And then again, I started trying to teaching students, and one thing that they really did not enjoy was reading poetry. Because they
Yeah.
started reading poem, they didn't understand anything. They read like the first two lines and were like, "What is this about?" And so the next question is, what tip would you give on reading poetry? Reading means to understand the poem.
Oh, wow, there's so much to say about that. I mean, one thing, this is just my own view, like a poem or any kind of artwork, a painting or, novel or play or whatever, or song. On the one hand, I don't think it can mean whatever anyone wants it to mean, but at the same time, there are a lot of different ways it can be interpreted or meaningful, and they don't all have to agree with each other. So there's a lot of ways it can be interpreted wonderfully, and that's totally cool. But at the same time, it can be misunderstood too, Um, and so I would say try to just enjoy it for its own sake and try not to worry too much about understanding it. I guess, since you brought it up, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm a big believer in the notion that we have like a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, this Carl Jung stuff, deep psychology from the turn of the century. And I think a lot of what's going on with poetry and a lot of art, one of the reasons why it's so weird, and it's like, why don't you just say what you mean, is because I think it taps into our unconscious mind, which is kind of like, when you go to sleep at night and you have dreams, they're really weird and they don't make any sense. And that the poem is kind of tapping into that weird world down under, and so it's okay to try to make sense of it. And if a lot of what you think you understand about it, you more feel than understand, that's cool.
And just to follow up on that question, for you, about what age did you start reading poetry? And was it something that was assignment, or you just decided to start reading poetry one day when you were younger?
Oh, wow. Wow, what a beautiful question. Oh, when I was a kid, I really liked Dr. Seuss a lot. I like that stuff. And so yeah, I guess it goes way back. But I have to say this is maybe a little embarrassing, but when I was in my adolescent years, I started liking, pop music and rock and roll music, and frankly wanting, kind of wanting to be Bruce Springsteen or someone like that, and I think, I started looking at the song lyrics of like my favorite songs and stuff, and wanting to do that, and wanting the fame and the glory. And then, as I aged, it that kind of transformed into this other thing where it's like, I'm not gonna be any of that. But I like doing this, and I like creating these things. And I did notice that for whatever reason, I did start getting a little bit of positive reinforcement, like in college and in high school and stuff, people saying they liked it, and it wasn't stupid and stuff. And anything, just like anything, if people are like going, no, that's cool, then it makes you, it gives you a little dopamine buzz, and it makes you want to do it a little bit more, just like anything else. And I think I'm lucky because I grew up in a pre-internet era and a pre like social media era. So instead of getting the dopamine buzz from getting likes on social media or something like that, I was getting it from like, creating these things that my high school girlfriend thought were nice and stuff, write her a little poem, telling her she's pretty or whatever. And she's like, oh, I like that. And made me feel like $1 million. It's like, I don't know how much time we have left, but I don't know if everybody's childhood was like mine, but I can remember doing the thing like in art class when I was in third grade where, I'd take like a crayon or whatever and draw a turkey around my hand and then put feet on it and some feathers and colored some weird colors and make a turkey, and then I'd take it home and, show it to my mom, just a little kid in third grade or whatever, and be like, hey, mom, look, I made a turkey, in art class. And she'd be like, that's great, Grant. We're going to put that on the fridge with a magnet, and it'd be on display there, man. And it made me feel good. And I think we like that. and I got a little bit of that when I was a kid, and I'm very lucky for it. And it just kind of kept me deciding to keep at this a little bit, if that helps.
No, it does. And then the final question: can you name a poem or poet? It doesn't really matter that you feel
Yeah.
was exemplary, and then why?
Yeah, what comes to mind, one that comes to mind is the poet Elizabeth Bishop from around the 1950s, I think, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, I suppose. And the title of the poem is The Moose, and it's a pretty long poem. And it's a poem that always comes to mind when I think of if I were going to name a favorite poem. That's one that always pops into my head. There's another one by another poet. I can't think of the name of the poet right now, and I feel bad about that. But the poem, I know the title. The title is The Names of Horses. And so if anybody wanted to Google that up, I just can't think of the writer's name. Again, it's from about that era, the 50s in America.
All right, and thank you so much. Actually, that's it. But before we go, do you want to give a shout out? Shout out means to anyone, any organization, anything you have coming out. So you want to give a shout out?
I mean, I kind of know because I just want to give a shout out to everybody and anybody. I wouldn't want to exclude anyone. So I'm just gonna say I'm just very grateful to you all for doing this with me. It's very validating. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate it too, actually. Thank you so much for joining me. And that's actually it. And so, again, we're signing off now. Thank you so much for joining Samjoko Magazine. I'm going to stop recording now.
Thanks.